at all? Raise your hand. Okay, so we still have a few. All right. Wait a minute, you've been here.
Not this meeting.
Oh, we've been to all the other ones. I'm not giving you the spiel again. That's not happening. Okay, so air quality competition. We're on week, I think, 6. I've lost track. I've definitely lost track. But a lot of good things going on. There's still lots of data sets out there. We have about 40 total. Go over to this one right now.
So this one.
Yeah, that one. So you'll see in here lots and lots of them. I've added a few informational ones too. So lots of great things to look for. Go back over to the big data, Utah. Don't forget, they're right here on these links. You can list the current data sets and everything to get to it. We really need people to start going out and actually trying to collect the data, because we're 4 or 5 weeks away from competition time, and we need all those data up on the Open Civic data set. Did you pull up the Open Civic one? Yeah, right there. So, and this is where they're going to end up. Now remember, you have to send these to me. You don't have to send the data set. You have to send me, okay, I'm ready to do a data set. Here's where it is. Here's where the file is. I need that because I've got to make sure that we don't send up duplicates into this place. Yeah, you can use this submission form right here. But I got to make sure we don't send up duplicates to Open Civic data. We want nice, clean data sets there. Okay? And so go over to the go up to the air quality. I wanted to mention that Kieran got our first data set done. So I wanted to give her a thank you. You can have whichever you want.
Oh, really?
Would you like movies or iTunes?
Movies box.
Movies.
What do you want?
Movies or iTunes?
What is this?
iTunes.
Oh.
iTunes good.
Okay, so we're going to start giving out more of these. I've got a whole bunch of them right here. We need people to do those data sets. She got one of the data sets done. Some of the things that I found on the data set, though, that we want to make sure of is that, 1, the data sets should end up in CSV. That's a common format we're going to use for everything. Okay, so yours was in Excel, so we're going to convert it to CSV. Okay. 2, most likely it should be in a tabular format. And I'd like to hear from the group if anybody disagrees with me on that. But basically, most of the time when you go to compete on this, you're going to import this or you're going to connect this to a bunch of other tabular data. So putting the data set in a tabular format will probably help you out. That's where I'm going to lean to. So again, with Kieran's data set, it was kind of separated by tabs. We really want that to be all one basic document with years going down it, essentially. Okay? Make sure you have date and location on there as well. You did have location. Make sure you have date and location on each of the data sets when you do that. Okay? So date and location, CSV format, and that's what you're looking for to produce to me, all right? And like I said, I've got lots more cards to give away for people that do data sets and start doing this work, all right? Any questions on getting the data sets? Okay, the next big thing we need to talk about is the actual competition. Now that we're getting really close, it's time for us to start deciding on what we're going to compete on. So where's our submission form? Right up there. We just created a submission form just this morning, so if there's any errors or anything, please don't stone me over it. But basically, what we want is your suggestion on how to fix air quality or how to provide insights on air quality, how to make it better. We don't care what that is. That can be pie in the sky. You can say, I would love to find all the data about every car in the valley and compare it to the air quality that's going on. I've given some examples here, but basically we want your suggestion. And this could be the suggestion that you plan to work on as a team and compete. It doesn't matter if you're sharing suggestions with others at this point. We're trying to collect as many suggestions as possible so that we can give that out to teams and say, here's what the community came up with, what would you like to work on? Does that make sense to everybody? If you put in 5 submissions, knock yourself out. Okay, please put them in separate forms so I don't have to try to figure out from your paragraph. In other words, if you want to submit 20 times, I want to do it on this and this and this and this, that's fine. Because it doesn't mean that you have to, you're not committing to it right now. Once we get all these compiled together, we'll send them all out to the community, and then everybody will choose what they're going to work on. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, and this is open to everybody. I'm going to send it out to you so that you can send it out to the government groups as well, so that this is open to anyone. If you've got friends that aren't even in technical savvy, if they're you know, CEOs, executives, whatever. Send them the link and say, if you wanted to improve air quality, what would you do? If you had unlimited times and resources, what would you do? And go here and submit what you think you should do. And we're taking all of those submissions. Next week, we hope to have this list basically by next week. So you're going to see a couple emails from me on this, several emails asking you to fill out this form, over and over and over again. Because we really need all these solidified by towards next week, where we can come together and say, okay, this is what we're actually working on. Once we have what we're actually working on, when people say, here's the top 10, here's what we're looking at, then those data sets all of a sudden become very, very valuable. And people need to go to those data sets, work on them, and get them collected, and get them into the Open Civic data set. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on submitting the form or on getting to this form? Now, this link, really, I haven't even made live yet. I mean, it's live, but you'll get an email later today with what this form actual link is, and we'll get it up on the site this afternoon or something, or tonight. Like I said, we just created it, but we'll get this to you very quickly. So the categories, go ahead and drop those down again, man. We kind of are starting to break it up into certain categories, cause and effect. You're going to work on the cause of the problem, or you're going to work on the effects of the problem, is how we're kind of looking at it. And based on one of those categories, you're going to put your abstract in that. Now, again, does that mean that we have all the categories in here, everything that's going to fit? No. We gave you other. You can put it inside other or cause or effect. But think of your problem. Is this part of the cause of the problem, or is this part of the effect of the problem? Okay? All right. So, any questions on this? No. Quiet group this afternoon. So, we need to get as many submissions as possible. Next week, we are going to meet most likely on Wednesday the 23rd. It is a holiday for a lot of people on the 24th and 25th. I mean, the 25th is not a holiday, but come on, we're all going to take the day off, right? We don't want to come down here. So, most likely, we will meet on the 23rd next week, at noon, same time, but in the middle of the week. Okay? So, we want as many of these submissions as possible before the 23rd. And again, you can submit 10, I don't care. As long as they're separate forms, I don't care. You can submit as many as you want. These are simply ideas we're throwing up on the wall, and lots of people are going to choose what they want to work on. Okay? That clear to everybody? Looks like food's coming in. Good, too. Okay, what else did I have to go over? So the Open Civic data site, I did put one on here already. Right, where is it? Go back to data sets. Oh, go to data sets, right here. Let's see if it refreshes. Okay. Yeah, take out Open Salt Lake, maybe. Where did my data set go? Take out this right here.
Does it have to be approved by an admin? You just trust
I don't know, does it? I don't think so. No. It should be that open data sets, actually. You know, maybe it does, or maybe it's not maybe it's not there yet. Okay. So we did add one, and so to give you an idea of what I'm doing is I'm putting UT in the name, so we know that this is Utah, related to Utah, because there's other data sets in here that are not. And then I'm also taking this JIRA ticket over here, and I'm taking the name of the JIRA ticket, Comp Air Quality-44. So these data sets should relate to some sort of JIRA ticket. They should relate to wherever it came from. So that way we can link them back and forth. So we always know where they're related to. And then in the descriptions down here, I'll put the exact link to the JIRA ticket. So when you're competing and when you're looking at these data sets, you're going to know exactly which JIRA ticket it was related to. And the JIRA ticket has a lot of the information you need. A lot of the information about what the data set is, who did it, all of that sort of stuff. So that we make sure that we can always keep these connected, that's why I'm using the name of the JIRA ticket in that name. Okay? And then I'll have a descriptive name right after that. The one I put up there was sprawl data. It's more informational data. It wasn't one collected. So we have a JIRA ticket with sprawl data, and then we have a data set with sprawl data. Okay? Any questions on these? And like I said, if I need approval, then I'll be hounding on him a little bit more to get approval quickly. Yeah. So, but as we add them, they're just going to start showing up inside this list. and then they're going to be complete and ready to go. Okay. Questions on the data sets? Remember, please, you can create an account in here, but please don't add your own data set here. Just simply so that we don't duplicate things. I don't mind if you want to add a data set to help them for something else, but for the air quality competition, please use the submission form. Please come to me and make sure that so we don't duplicate. All right, I think that's all I had. I know that Nick is probably on his way down because I just saw Spencer. Let's see, did we have anything else up there?
Other links.
I don't think we had any other links. So we really, really need people to go out to those JIRA tickets and start trying to gather data. Use whatever means necessary to gather the data. I'm working on, the PEMS data is out there, it's available. I'm working on getting some of that from the background, the traffic signal light data as well. I'm working on that right now, and I should have that in the next week or so. And then we are actively still working on getting resources, hardware sort of things, and that's coming together. Just a little more work on that. So, other questions for the air quality? No. Okay. So Matt, why don't you get started, and then we'll take a break when Nick comes in with some food. Yeah. So, but so remember everybody, Wednesday next week. All right, Matt, go ahead.
Okay. So, so these guys asked me to talk a little bit about data transformation today, and I know people probably are yawning, thinking this is the most unfun, less sexy thing you've ever done before. But I want to start off with some caveats here. A lot of the work I do in the big data realm deals with data ingestion and data transformation. It is the most important thing you will do in your project. You'll see it later on, but it's the 90-10. People start off with 80-20, but I'm actually in the 90-10 or 95-5. You get most of your insights out of just a very, very small portion of data, and you don't want that data to be messed up. So it's really important. So why? So one of the things we've talked about in this air quality competition is CDA. It's just a term that we came up with to try and make it really, really easy to have some core concepts. C for clean, D for define, A for accessible. Really, really simple. We're not going to try and apply any intelligence on top of the data at this point. We're just making it available. So as I was saying, big data is messy, particularly as you start to look at really diverse data sets. If you're ingesting, say, an Omniture event log, that is extremely messy. You know, it's not uncommon to have high percentages of your records not match some sort of schema. As I already said, the 90-10, it's an opportunity for you to really get to know your data. I've been a part of organizations that say, we really know our data. We know it inside and out. And then we really start to get in it. Other people have had that experience, right? You get to really digging in and you're saying, you know, I've been through, I've ingested, I've applied my analytics, and why in the heck are we off by 40%? You know, they didn't know their data. And all of a sudden their data ended up in a big black hole and was not used as part of the entire analytics effort. So what I would say is take the time to get to know your data. The ways to do this. Sampling, really, yeah. Like I said, it's not sexy, it's not fun, and it stinks, but sample your data. So it's not just the top 5 records or the last 5 records, but take a good sampling, good statistical sampling of the data. Tools that help you visualize the data are really powerful. I saw a great demo, and I'm not going to push any commercial product here for visualization, but I saw a great product demo from Informatica. And has anyone ever used Informatica before? One hand over there. So one of the cool things that they do, so ETL, like I said, boring, but they have a tool that will do a data discovery for you. And again, it's really expensive, and I don't know what just happened. We just lost the projector. I know, it was awful. Yeah, Amber, well, I can keep going. So what Informatica does is they, a data discovery tool, so they will sample the data and they'll figure out the data types in a particular field. They'll try and parse it. They'll try and make smart suggestions for you in terms of, is this a string? Does it fit in some sort of categories? Do we have a discrete list of options available? Now, I don't know, I've heard that thing costs many thousands of dollars more than I would really, I can't do that for this project. But the same kinds of things you can do here. I found very, very powerful, whether you use Excel or Hive or anything else, to pull out the columns of data, look for ranges, do bounds checking, error checking, make sure that the data matches kind of what you think, the feel for what it should do. Maybe if you're if you come from a database extract and you're expecting non-null and within few characters or empty strings or something like that, that should signal you the smell test. There's something wrong with my import of data. And if there's something wrong with that, then it's likely cascaded into the entire file. So one of the common problems that I've seen is commas. I know Pat wants a CSV. I think separated values are great. Don't use commas. Use tabs or control characters or something else, pipes, something that's not in the data set. One of the reasons why Omniture tends to bomb out so much is they produce a CSV, and that CSV often maybe has an address in there as part of a cookie, and they'll put commas in there, and all of a sudden your parsing strategy just blows up. There's no way to recover from that until you start to do smart things, like pull it into some sort of function. Thanks for getting that going again. So again, I come from the big data space, so I'm passing everything through a Java transformation object anyway. So I can do detections real time, or not real time, but as the data is flowing across very, very easily, and I can detect those, and I can actually collapse addresses down to a single field. Smell test. Have you guys ever heard this before? Yeah. What do you guys think it is? What does it mean to you guys?
Smells bad, it is bad.
Smells bad, it is bad. Okay. How do you know when something smells bad?
What does your intuition tell you about it?
Right. Yeah. So if we're looking for maybe a lat long and we see a zip code or something, we've got a problem. So what does your intuition tell you? And before we get to food, which I know is the good smell in the room, scientific method. I know this is all something we learned in elementary school. It's surprising to me that it's not applied in professional world these days. But we kind of do it at some level. But formulate a question, make a hypothesis, make a prediction, do a test with a control, do some analysis, and then communicate. And then you iterate on this. Good data science. Whether we're just pulling in, UDOT information or something else, follow this, and it will really, really help you out. You want to take a break for food? Okay, let's do it.
You're going to put this on the slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead, go grab some food, and I'll wet my whistle as well.
Okay.
I want to. Is there a way to pause it? Just stop.
If you stop the browser, it'll create a whole nother link with another. You don't.
For those of you watching, we're going to have some food, and when the screen changes, we're back again.
Until then, enjoy the conversation. Because it'll pick up everything. It's probably here.
Yes. So actually, it gets wide open.
Oh,
But there's some certain cabinets. So it's Jared@bigdatautah. So if you go to bigdatautah.org, you'll see Jared, right?
Doesn't matter.
Just put in your name and email, and then set up an account.
registration.
It's wide open. But the difference is it's not open to create tickets. It's not open to like do things like comments, liking, watching, whatever, suggestions, comments. So, yeah.
And as far as like information on I mean, it's that's why I was thinking.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Say, hey, this is
So-
my experience with that data, or I don't know. Sure.
But what we're trying to do is being volunteer. So I can't it's okay. Pick something not complete. We're trying to spread it out. So we're not assigning. But what we're suggesting is get onto original groups that should be on the way down inside. Okay, good. And then just say, hey, I have experience working on this. I'm really trying to get a conversation going with groups. It's probably the best way we have is communicate with them. And the same way, I think we should probably announce. Maybe say, raise your hand out. I'm working on this. We're not assigned. So that way, something has some reach out to this. We're all here to
So for data science, like, I saw there, they have like, like solid pages. Imagine that. Some of them are like data set, for example, here's a data set of all air monitoring stations, but others would be here's an XML file that represents constantly an hourly update.
We are trying to make them consistent, but at the end of the day, sometimes you can be consistent. Well, I mean, just like say, these particular fields are more valuable.
Either associated
We're advocating just the biggest thing. I don't really care about just data set. If it's an nested structure, maybe hard to pull out.
I don't know if you consider
No?
That's why I brought it up. Something like, for example, like a data set. So that's basically there's like all the formats. And so that's, yeah, it's really reality. You need to like decode it, like each element, each
That's, we are expecting that.
I mean, it's not that huge. I mean, it's something to reality. It's like huge.
Yeah.
Like storing the entire thing is.
Yeah, it's probably. Yeah, no, we're trying to do something. Comments, yes. Actually, I'll talk about. I should bring that up. Okay, so looks like everyone's got food that wants food. We're gonna get going again. John here was just talking about he has expertise in a certain kind of data set, and I just kind of wanted to follow up we don't really have a way of saying, you know, I'm raising my hand, I'm going to take this particular data set and work on it. So what I'm suggesting is go to the Google Groups, say, I'm working on this data set, and it's out there, and you know, if he comes by and says I have particular expertise in this, like gotchas, then maybe it's a good way to collaborate, or I'm looking for help on this kind of data set. Let's use Google Groups for that. We can do comments on Jira, but you have to be a watcher on there to actually get those, so it's not broadcast to everyone. That's kind of the fighting technologies, you know, or lots of different distribution mechanisms. There's one other thought that I had. Oh, yes, so another thought. So he's talking about a binary data set that you know, you have to have a tool to pull it out. And it came to my mind that some of these binary data sets, or even XML documents, have nested structures that are really, really hard to represent in CSV. You kind of lose the meaning, or maybe they're arbitrary long lists of elements. If that's the case, use your best judgment. Maybe it's best to keep it in XML, you know, because we don't want to lose the data. So here's a couple examples. After, you know, applying the scientific method, I can't tell you, I've done this all the time, where you pull in a data set, it doesn't go correctly, and there's a problem. So some of the things I've done here, and I just did this, I can show you, hopefully I don't break the projection. I'm a big fan of Avro or some other storage. You guys heard of ASCII Armor from the old PGP days? It's a way of, you know, protecting your data in flight. So Avro is a binary storage mechanism. It's an Apache project. But you get the schema. This is a file that I just catted. And it's really, really kind of cool because it embeds the schema for the file, and then this is the binary representation of the data itself. What that gives me is I don't have to worry about commas ever. I don't have to worry about any delimiter. It's all binary data. The other really cool thing that I can do when we're talking transformation here is I can convert it one time. Now suppose the schema changes tomorrow. You know, so if I were to put this in an example that it's probably unlikely that maybe happen, maybe they add a new monitoring station, and their schema goes wide with the monitoring station, and it's now 21 elements when it used to be 20 elements. It used to be a big pain in the old EDW or SQL world. You'd add a column, you'd then try and backfill the data or something like this. What Avro allows you to do is schema expansion or schema evolution. Now that's something that's really powerful in transformation. I don't have to go back and reprocess any of the data that I've already pulled in. This says that this particular data element right here is type string and is item name. It's really not very creative here. But if I wanted to match item name against some new field like item SKU, well, I already have SKU. Maybe it's, I don't know, size. Item size, I could do some sort of matching, and I could do a join against that in the future. And it provides a reasonable default. Here I'm saying the default's empty string. So again, it's not really relevant to CSVs, but it is a way to convert your data, particularly as you start to process, that you can do schema evolution. The other thing that you need to do is bulletproof your data. Once you pull it in, you spend all this time transforming and sucking in data. Why would you put it into a format that would then lead to parsing problems? Commas, again, I don't like CSVs. But here is an example. JSON is a very common output format, very common document you can just shove into any sort of system. Readers are available in any language. So I can shove this in. And again, I wrote a Java thing because I'm a Java guy. And you know, I modified it, and then I can pull in that document, and I can get objects back out that I can operate on. Again, this comes from my big data mentality where I want a single-threaded process to be automatically parallelized against a huge data set. So I'm just thinking Java because that's what it does. So, or not Java, but Hadoop, right? So Java is the interface into Hadoop. So JSON is a very common data storage format, as is Avro. any questions on this? There are a bunch of other things, protocol buffers. There's another one I heard the other day. I can't remember, but it's.
So just to be clear, you're saying that you use Avro as one data definition and this JSON.
You could. I mean, there's no reason why. I mean, depending on the system. So again, I come with the bias of Hadoop, right? So if I pull in this, it's defined as Avro, and this defined as JSON. It doesn't matter to me. That whole problem is abstracted away, and I just have two data sets. And I can just join, I can filter, I can do whatever I want. So, but the reason I'm kind of thinking these ways, that's what I do professionally, but we're also trying to get clusters for people to actually use. Once we get all these data sets in, you're not trying to melt your computer doing whatever. So, yeah, so great question. Any other questions? Some suggestions. Again, CSV evil. Choose a better C. Control A's are great. They're very rarely found. In fact, that's the default delimiter in Hive, which is when it stores things out in Hadoop. Good idea is to check your good and bad records. Can you make it so bad is then transformed into good? Is there any sort of transformation that you can do in a special use case? It's always a good idea when you're pulling in data to take a look and say, maybe use the word count in Linux. You do a word count for all the lines, WCHL. I have 1,000 lines. Do I have 1,000 good records at the end? And then, if I'm counting bad, I should have the sum of bad and good equal to the word count or line count. If I don't, again, that doesn't pass smell test. I'm missing data somewhere. Don't throw away data just yet. So save off the bad into a separate file in the original format. If someone wants that data, they can, in their own time, when I say expense, they can go and they can try to figure out how to pull the data in. So what we're looking for in the competition is a 99% of the data. Don't spend 100% or 80% of your time for that one last extra record. Okay, we want the bulk of the data. We realize that our time is all short and very valuable. But don't throw it away, please. If you're using Microsoft for your things, please make sure you don't introduce any Microsoft cruft in there. You guys know what that is, the Control M's or any of the DOS formatting. Okay, so that will cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. So I'm not saying Microsoft's bad. It's just comes with WordPad. WordPad does that by default. So define. So when we mean define, what we're really saying is where did the data originate? How was it sampled, or when was it sampled? Who did the sampling? And did you encounter any problems getting the data? What this allows us to do is say, if the data is refreshed daily and we sampled it on yesterday, we're now missing a day's worth of data. Can we go back? Can we reproduce it? How did you sample it? Can we bring it up to speed? And who did it is just as important, because then they can say, hey, can you give me some help on getting the updates? Yeah.
The one I'll add to that too, Matt, is that when you send these data sets in, also be prepared to define the columns and what's in there. And there's a source. Oh, you're going next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. You want to take it?
Yeah. So you'll have a source. Like we'll have a big PDF saying this goes back to the CDC or something like that, but that could be 100 pages of stuff we don't really ever care about. So if you can tell us more metadata, you're going to help the people compete, and you're going to help yourself later on to say what each of these pieces are. Again, you got to think of this as you're trying to do this for yourself as much as for everyone else competing as well. You don't want to try to remember what you did 2 months ago, because you won't. We never do, right? So, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is for the fields I care about, right?
Well,
There'll be a whole lot of fields I don't care about, but these
well,
three.
we're trying not to exclude fields at this point in time in the game, because what you may consider important.
I'm not saying exclude the data set. I'm just saying about any notes
Oh, yeah.
or documentation. I don't necessarily have to document every field, just the ones that, these are important to
Yeah.
adhere.
We're all volunteers. Let's do the best we can. What
Yeah.
do you care about? I'm not going to make you document every job too.
Yeah, like I said, that's why it's key that you have the source to go back to. If somebody else wants the other 15 fields that are in there, they can go look it up in the document and figure it out. But if that was key to you and key to what you're doing, then that works and that helps you out. Yeah.
So I would like to look at the summaries and see that in this particular data set, there are these fields.
So that's-
Otherwise, I might not know that
Right.
they're
So
there.
here's let me go to so schema. The schema should have a field definition, right? It should have for every column, because if I were to produce it, you should be able to pull it in using your tool of choice and know there are 20 fields, and if possible, a expected data type. Now the metadata, what is this? I agree. You know, maybe I don't care, and that's a lot of work to go figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's where some of the domain expertise comes in, and we may need to say, you know, what is this particular field represent, and we have to farm it out or go ask. But yeah, and so as you get to know the data, you get back to getting to know the data. As you're looking at it, if it's relevant, you know, what are some of the range of values? What are some of the bounds that we can start to expect to see from this data? Now, again, this is not the sexiest thing in the world, but I guarantee you, if you practice this here, you become more valuable in your day job as well, right? You're the guy they call in to go do the surgical, what happened, post-mortem kind of things.
It'd be good to add time and location on that, right? So, or time and location in general, as you put the data sets.
We mentioned earlier too.
Yeah.
Make sure that every data set has time and location.
Yeah. So what they're talking about is in the schema, we're trying to find lat long and a time, a sample time or something. Some way that we can join it back in some sort of time bucket. Okay. And then, you know, if whatever format you're using, so if we're using CSV or TSVs or whatever, put it in the header, so it's there. If it's an arrow, it's already embedded, or if it's XML, you know, make sure you use obvious names. But don't make, like, you know, if I'm trying to do attribute type, don't do AT or AV or for attribute value, because then everyone's left to think, what the heck is AV? We can all compress these and decompress them, so you know the attribute value is going to compress very nicely. Any questions on this?
It's probably good on the naming too, because if you do something like AV, I've got a feeling there's a bunch of sets out there that they have that column for some sort of measurement or something else. I mean, I've seen some of the data sets and measurements. Some of the columns are not descriptive at all.
Yeah.
I mean, these are minor devices that stuck these names on there. It could be anything.
Yes. So that's a good point. I mean, we're kind of approaching this from a batch-oriented or a non-time-sensitive mentality. If we were serving this data public, then absolutely we're going to try and find any way to shrink that those bytes that we're transmitting down. But you know, given the systems that we're going to have access to, not a problem. Take it. It makes it easy to handle. So, you know, if you were to ask me how to do this in a real-time, you know, e-commerce application, I would not recommend that. But here's fine. Accessible. Package up the data files. Maybe it's one, maybe it's several. It just depends on how big they are. Maybe the header or maybe the metadata is in a separate file as opposed to the data file. Send a notification to the bigdata.org that something's ready to be uploaded, and then Pat will coordinate with you uploading the data. That's accessible. Then he'll get it up on the Civic data site. Some of the resources, hard to see. Again, these are some of the commercial offerings that I've seen that are really cool, and they have some open source or community editions as well. Informatica, Talent, and Tahoe, Tableau. There's a new version that I was unaware of, but a public version. So if I want to suck in data, I want to visualize some of the things, I can have a really easy visualization. Maybe it's a graph, maybe it's they even have map data. If we have lat long, we can start to see heat maps really easily. So you can get to know your data very well
And I don't know if Pentaho has the same thing, but one of the guys that comes to these meetings works for Pentaho and is going to try to get us access to it.
I just want to mention, after about 2 weeks ago, Tableau finally has a native Mac version.
Yes. Yes. That's so that just for the mic, as of a couple weeks ago, Tableau has a native Mac edition. So yeah, that's awesome. Some of the libraries that are out there. Again, I come from the Java world. Tika, Apache. Really, you guys used Tika before? It's a really cool library that I can read into PDF, Word, Excel, even video files, audio files, and I can convert that to data files. So that used to not be possible, especially with all the Microsoft products. Even some of the CAD definitions, we could pull out things. Some of the data we're going to probably have are going to be shaped files. So it's going to overlay on a map in terms of geometric shapes, right? This can do a lot of that. And we can figure out the format. Again, what's important here is defining your format. You know, we can put up the original file. Maybe it's a PDF that's 1,000 pages, you know, as the government likes to do. We can put that up there as the original PDF, and then if you want to pull it out into some sort of other format, we can do that as well. Again, from the Java world, Jackson Faster XML is an excellent tool. There's all sorts of tools out there for all sorts of libraries. You know, we've had a lot of talk on Python from the other guys up here, so I felt I need to bring balance to the world, so I'm Java focused. But yeah, anything you guys want. Google's your best friend there. So yeah, so the last thing is just remember to clean it, to define it, and to make it accessible. And then not only will that help us in this competition, but it will help you in your day-to-day jobs. So that's all I have prepared. Any questions you guys have? I can show you the cool a utility I wrote that'll suck in a delimited file, dump it out to Avro. Show you the other example I wrote. I just want to make sure I got this live before it broke the broadcast.
As long as it stays on desktop too.
Okay, so let me show you this. This is a cool tool, particularly if you're pulling in data sets that get to the right one here. There we go. So I was working with one of the guys on a particular project. We were going to pull in some financial data. As you know, financial data is very tricky. It has a lot of nuances, lots of dots, lots of commas, lots of weirdness. So I wanted a bulletproof way of storing the data, and I knew I was going to be processing it in some sort of Hadoop environment. So I decided, let's go to Arrow. So I wrote a pig program. Again, this is way overkill for even the EPA data. A couple hundred megs is probably way overkill.
But you love pigs.
But I love pigs, so I'm going to be evangelizing it. So again, the top part's really not that interesting. It's just a bunch of defaults. What is interesting is I have a schema here that I'm reading in from a delimited file, and then I have an arrow schema. As I went to production on this, this was actually auto-generated for me, so I didn't have to. This is really ugly, but I want to make it really easy to see. Some defaults and setup here. So I'm going to load the data in, and pig search automatically is going to separate by a delimiter. Then going to the second line here, we actually take the raw data and I'm going to append a tuple, which is just the count of the number of columns, so I can validate that the delimiter worked correctly. The good records down here is just the number of data with the column counts matching, and then I'm going to, instead of being a compressed bag, I'm going to flatten it back out so it's the original data format. then I can do a count. Same thing here with bad records. Anything where the column count is a mismatch, then I'm going to expand it for future use, and then do a count. I'm going to store the data out, so I actually have a record of what the bad data records were. So I can go back on a daily basis and say what was not adjusted. If there needs to be any, go back and fix the program. The good records is a little misleading. You'll probably see why in the world am I exporting the good records. Well, that's because next line here, when I want to read it back in and convert it to Avro, it's going to actually have a schema that's defined. So I'm going to give it a set of char arrays here. Then I'm going to dump it using the Avro storage with run. That's it. That's all I do. That will happily chunk through all your data. Again, it's like a single thread. I don't have to worry about parallelization. And I have Avro files that I can use.
What's the source data? CSV?
Yeah, so this one I had, one that I showed you before is just this, just a CSV. Sorry, Mike. So I can just run a quick example. So what it's going to do is it's going to actually complain because I already have data out there. Can run it through, and it's going to do all its setup and teardown again. This is why it's too. This is overkill for some of the data, some of the little data that we're working on, some of the bigger data sets that may be applicable. But you can see it's embedded. It's created a data file, this Avro file. It's embedded the Avro schema, and then there's the binary data representation of what is in there. It's all self-contained, portable, processed anywhere. So, personally, I'm a fan of bulletproofing the data like this. So, any other questions? Okay. All right. Anything else?
So, yeah, any questions overall? Oh, does anyone need a MapR sandbox and a USB stick? You want it, Pam?
Yes, I win by speed.
Yes, you win by default. Now, that's probably downloadable. I don't know if anybody's been looking, but sandboxes, we kind of suggest MapR has one, Hortonworks has one, Cloudera has some virtual machines. I mentioned this kind of last time too. Pull those down and start using them for things like this or for when you're doing the work, because when we give you a nice giant cluster to use, then you're already ready to do it. You're ready to scale it up really quickly. So you don't have to do too much changes for that.
And let the whole group know if you run into issues or anything, so we can all teach each other.
Yeah, the big thing is anytime you have an issue on one of these JIRA tickets, data sets, anything else, you can put a comment on the ticket, but we also suggest comments in the Google groups. Tell people what's going on in the Google groups, because people watch that and then they can respond if they haven't answered those questions. Because again, we're all cooperating right now, and we will be all the way up really until the competition. Even after the competition, we'll probably cooperate a bunch. So.
We only have a few more weeks left, and we've got 3 dozen data sets that need to be cleaned.
Yeah. So we need to. Everybody needs to get work on them very soon. Every one of these events, I will bring more and more gift cards to. If you'd like one, get to work. Basically.
So you're talking about Google groups. Which ones?
UHug, Google Group.
Actually,
Yeah,
here
it's
too.
right somewhere on our links. Which
Normally on the left-hand side.
So,
isn't it at the
The main
top?
data.
Isn't
Go
it
back to the
right
main page.
there?
You're on the competition.
yeah, there you go.
No, it's right there.
That does it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Google groups.
Yeah. That'll link you right to the UHug Google groups that they've been using. And so discussions, that's the best place for a discussion, right? The Google groups work perfectly for that. But we don't mind JIRA comments on the tickets as well, because we'll see those and then put those out as well. So.
Are you using paper distribution of the competition?
Well, when it comes to the competition, everyone's allowed to use whatever they want. So remember, on the competition, you don't have to use Hadoop. Just because we talk about it a lot, if you want to use Cassandra, React, whatever flavor you want, that's up to the competition, that's up to the team.
Okay.
When we tell you to go out and get data, that's also up to you. But then if we give you a resource, it will most likely be a Hadoop cluster. So we are working on that right now. Somebody's going to hand us a Hadoop cluster to use, and we're going to say, here you go, here's a nice big resource to play with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when they do that stuff, we're just gonna have to fit with it, whatever they want.
With whatever they donate us, right?
So they would need Cloudera.
No, not right now.
Oh, really?
When we get their name, we'll let you know. So, yeah.
It's all in place. We've had a lot of, okay, we're good to go, but we want to be like, all the boxes checked before we.
But yeah, remember, when it comes to the competition time, we don't care how you come up with your answers to your questions and things like that. That's entirely open to the community to do whatever. We were here to show you big data technologies and then also teach you on Hadoop and other things. But what you end up using in the end is entirely up to you.
Now it's time for Mark Logic to shine.
Oh, no, there's an array of Hadoop distributions and version numbers.
Yeah.
So if I was going to sandbox, because I was just looking at Hortonworks, I'd go for it. I knew we were going to be off a cluster that was, but I would start with that one is where I was coming from.
Yeah, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that most of your standard MapReduce stuff you're going to do is going to work on just about all the
so the main thing that you're going to interact with is probably Big Hive or Java MapReduce, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that all these vendors are putting on are management tools and setting up and tear down kind of things. And to be honest with you, unless you really care, maybe it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I happen to choose CDH because that's what I'm most familiar with, and they make it brain dead simple to spin up a machine and even a whole cluster. But
It'll start to matter if you start looking at some of the bolt-ons like Spark.
Yeah, some of those pieces.
You know, NavBar is instrumental in Shark on Spark, or
yeah, you know, CDH did Spark too, so it's
what is it, Apollo?
Yeah. So,
but when it comes to the standard, hey, I want to MapReduce over this, because we could end up giving you Amazon Elasticsearch MapReduce. I mean, Elastic MapReduce, and that's, you know, I don't even know what flavor they have behind that.
It's usually old compared to what you get.
Yeah. So
Mark Logic is certified on CDH though, so.
Yeah, like I said, we can't say right now for sure. But again, when it comes down to the end of it, you can use whatever you want, whatever tools you want. If you want to write a solution in C and put it out that way, knock yourself out. It's when the competition comes, it's open to whatever you want to use. So, okay. Other questions? So make sure you get those abstracts and ideas in, and we don't care how many you submit, and we would love for you to send it to your friends. Like I said, I will send you a link in the newsletter this afternoon. I'm going to send out a special newsletter, let everybody know about Wednesday and everything else going on. So that'll come out this afternoon, but please share that link of this form to go out to and submit your abstracts. We need lots of abstracts, lots of ideas, so we can compete on lots of different things. Okay? And don't feel that I've got this great idea and I can't share it with anybody because I'm going to compete on it. No, you can share it with everyone. Maybe nobody will take it, or maybe you'll work on it with somebody else that's in your team. So,
Matt, can you show where the newsletter is on here as well, real quick?
the newsletter? What do you mean? The newsletter gets sent. Oh, yeah, make sure you sign up for the newsletter. In case anybody has not, you must be signed up for the newsletter to get a lot of this information. Okay? So make sure you're signed up on that. Real simple MailChimp that comes out. And like I said, that'll come out this afternoon. So, any other questions? Okay, I think we're done. See you guys on Wednesday. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Grab a sandwich if you're still